Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, Lori. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you. Guys, we just had a huge realization like seconds ago. Lori, it's May. It's no
I
longer
know.
April.
Yeah. I know. Lauren was asking me if I had my links beyond May, and I'm thinking, well, why? It's not even May yet. And I looked at the calendar and I went, it's May 1st. So I know I've been saying this the last couple of weeks. Is everybody else's life going really, really fast? I just feel that way. But I was thinking this morning, Lauren, and this is a positive way to start because you guys that tune in every week know that one of the things I really try to do in my life is be fully engaged. I don't care what's going on. I want to be fully engaged. I am so fully engaged in so many things that I'm like oblivious to time. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do this. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do that. And that's the way life should be. So I'm glad it's May and I didn't notice. That means I am fully engaged in life.
Lori, you're so good. That's so beautiful. Oh, let's see. Oh, I'm on Zoom
Zoom
speed, but
speed.
engaged.
I like that. I know. I always say that. I said, well, if I'm coming back to this planet, I'm going to have a damn good time, or I'm not coming back. That was my rules. I was like, I'm not in unless I'm going to have a good time. Okay, take it away, Lauren.
All right, here we go. Let me go ahead and get these slides together. Good morning again, everyone. We're super excited to have you. My name is Lauren Simpson. I am with SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center. We are a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, and we offer no-cost services to local small businesses. Now, our services are at no cost to you because your tax dollars have already taken care of all of our fees. Now, for the Los Angeles Regional Network, which is the network we represent, you'll see that we serve several locations. So we serve 3 different counties. That's the Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. We also have several, 7 to be exact, physical locations, and you can see those on the map in front of you. We are actually in Camarillo or Ventura area, Santa Clarita, Pasadena, all the way out to Laverne, which is near Ontario. You'll see that we're also throughout Los Angeles, the South Bay, down into Long Beach. Now, here's the good stuff. Here's what we are able to offer to you for free. We offer no cost business advising. We also offer no cost virtual trainings. Now, with the business advising, that is your opportunity to sit one-on-one via Zoom currently with one of our business experts. And we have experts in various fields. I'm talking about marketing, if you need someone to assist you with communications, if you are looking to get some market research, or if you're just starting out and looking to do create a business plan, or you're looking to expand and grow and looking to access capital. We actually have a very special team called the ACT team, or the Access to Capital team. Lori, our guru of all numbers, is actually a part of that team, but they can assist you with accessing capital. And back to our guru, Miss Lori Williams, that's your opportunity to sit one-on-one with her, and she'll help you get your numbers right. There is no need to be afraid, especially when you have Miss Lori Williams. And then we also offer virtual trainings. That is going to be your opportunity to engage in one of our, or participate, excuse me, in one of our workshops. And we have various workshops. I'm talking about workshops that'll assist you in beginning your business, adapting, and or growing. Not and or growing. We want to grow. So and growing. So please, last steps, be sure to get in contact with us today. We'd love to work with you and get you started. You can reach us by phone, 866-588-7232, or go online, smallbizla.org/new client. If you have reached us and you're outside of our service area, that means that you are outside of the Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, or Ventura counties. Please go to americassbdc.org/find your SBDC. I'm going to stop my screen share really quick, Lori. Let's be sure. Oh, let me check in here and see what's going on with the chat. I see it going a little crazy right now. Guys, for housekeeping, let's be sure we put all questions in the Q&A. Again, questions into the Q&A, and then we want to check out the chat actually for any useful links that Lori would like to share with you, as well as info related to our guests today. With that, Lori, I'm going to kick it over to you. Good morning again.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And good morning to you again. Okay, let's see. Guys, I'm going to start out with my little words of wisdom today. Now, I am going to approach a topic here that in the few minutes that I use the words of wisdom is not covering it in any way, shape, or form, right? What I'm trying to achieve here is if you guys just kind of hear what I'm saying and walk away and go, that's interesting, and it's something to kind of stew on or think about, then I'll achieve my goal. And then you can always go in for more information on it. But I'm bringing a topic up about profit margins. You know, that's my soapbox thing. Profit margins, buy a quart of milk. You hear it all the time. But I hear people ask me, what is the correct profit margin for my company? Or they say, somebody told me my profit margin should be this. So I am about to tell you something that you probably heard nobody else tell you in the small business world. When you get to the larger CFO type thing, everybody talks about this, but in the small business world, this isn't understood very well. So what I'm going to tell you is why this cannot be answered without an analysis of your own data, why somebody can't say, well, your profit margin should be this, and why industry standards do not apply to small companies. So I wanted to explain a very complicated thing in just a few seconds. So I have a little graph to show you. I want you to picture this circle down here. Picture this circle being 100% of your revenue. If we were to look at what I call the cost structure, each company has its own cost structure. If we were to look at the cost structures, think of it like your DNA. It's unique to you. The company has its own cost structure. So if you looked at 100% of revenue, you could do internal calculations that I could say, well, 26% of the 100% of revenue of the circle is cost of goods, cost to produce the product or service. 74% is left over, and that's the gross profit margin, whatever that happens to be. These are just, numbers. They're not true numbers. They're just numbers to demonstrate. Now, out of that 74% chunk, if you see the circle over here, 46% in this case, in this cost structure, goes to the overhead expenses, and 27% is left over for net income. Now, if I increase the cost of goods, it's going to take away and add more percentage. It's going to remove some from the gross profit, and eventually it'll remove some from the net income. So this is a visual demonstration of the type of tools that I use to identify what profit margin a company needs to be at, what net income margin do the company need to be at to be successful. Because at the end of the day, this number here is what is available to pay the owner back and reinvest in the company. And therefore, any changes within this is going to remove and make this number lower. So the only thing you want to understand is that there's a circle, it's 100%. If you come outside the circle, it's a negative number, it's a loss. And if this number gets small and small and small, it represents what you're talking about for your income. So at the end of the day, whatever the gross profit margins are within the company, this circle, it can't be any more than 100% or it pops out the circle. Just understand that part. So why can't this be answered without analysis? Because you have to identify what is the cost for you to produce? What is your overhead? Each of these are unique within each company, especially small businesses, which comes back to why industry standards do not apply to small companies. To explain this easily, think of a grocery store. Think of Safeway, Albertson, one of the top grocery stores. When you think of these grocery stores, they are all competing with the same customers. So the price of chicken in one place is about the price of chicken in another place, a price of chicken in another, right? They're kind of similar, right? So their selling prices are similar. Now think about their supply. You see the Cisco big trucks pull up. They're all buying from the same distributors. So the cost of the chicken's about the same. So when you look at this, whether it's Safeway or Albertson, it's about the same number. Now, when you look at the overhead, they're within blocks of each other. The real estate's the same cost. They're competing for the same employer. The employees have the same cost. They're paying minimum wage or whatever the government is requiring. That's going to be the same. So the overhead's going to be about the same percentage. So when you go into the SEC and you get their financials, because they're public information, you will see that the percentages are just about in the same. That's why the competition at that level is so hard, because you're all competing with the same cost, with the same selling price, with the same everything. But now let's look at a small company. A small company may be working out of their house, maybe renting. A small company may have an series of employees, may not. The owner may be doing the work, may not. They may be driving this car, maybe be driving that car. They're all over the board. They may be competing over here with these customers. They may be undercharging. They may be all these things. So the numbers are never within the same alignment. So therefore, their circles are going to be all different. So if you turn around and you say, I'm going to sell at this price because my competitor is selling at this price, you don't know what your circle's like compared to your competitor. The competitor could be making 1% net income, which you don't want. You want 3%. So you can't match the selling price. So if somebody comes up to you and say, your industry standard is a gross profit margin of this, that may not be what is required within your cost structure. So what is the correct margin for my company? This is the actual correct answer. You ready, guys? The correct gross margin for every one of your company, every single person listening to me right now, I'm going to tell you what your gross profit margin should be. Are you ready? Your gross profit margin should be high enough to cover your overhead expenses and have money left over for you and reinvestment to the company. And what that number is has to be calculated through your cost structure. So that's the discussion I wanted to have today. I've been having that discussion with everybody for the last couple weeks, and I wanted that to be a statement. Now, if you want to know how to do that calculation, that's where I go through it in session 2 and session 3 in my finance class. That's the circle is part from session 3 that you looked at. So that's where I go into detail on how you have to extract your data, how you have to collect it, and how you know what is your correct profit margins. Okay, upcoming shows. Next week, we've got Tracy Alves coming on with Smudgies. It's a really cool company that sells all of these. I'm going to let her talk about the product. I'm going to say it's a cool company that sells online, and she has a lot to share about the entire process of getting the product and distributing it and selling it online. On May 22nd, Kay's coming back on from STEMS. She has the catering company. If you watch some of the previous shows, she came on. We didn't get to have a full interview. We had some technology issues. She couldn't click on the whole time. And the conversation was so rich and powerful. I said, Kay, you got to come back on. We got to complete this conversation. So I'm excited to have her coming back on the 22nd. On May 29th, Ariel's coming on, and this is another great story. She sells footwear online, and she's been doing it for a bit of time and has up and down, just coming out of a down cycle, coming back to an up cycle. And she's designing some of it. She's getting it outsourced. She's then selling it online, and she's handling this all on her own. It's pretty incredible what she's doing, and she's learning a lot. And she's going to share with us a lot of the wisdom that she's learned and what she's dealing with really now in real time. So got great guests. Thinking of great guests, you guys are going to love today. So Mika is an entrepreneur whose epic journey from heart disease survivor to wellness Mongol has been featured on CNN, NBC, KTLA, and CBS. After surviving 5 heart stents and 3 invasive procedures before 36, Mika launched Goomi Group to make health and wellness affordable and accessible for everyone. Now living her bonus life, Mika is blazing a trail to revolutionize workplace wellness nationwide. Oh my God, I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
I'm so happy to be here. For everybody listening, Lori's like amazing and was life-changing for me. So I'll just start with that.
Well, thank you so much on that. Okay, everybody's going to want to know, you had heart problems before 36, and this caused you to launch the company. And I remember when we first met, I was amazed with your story because it's so heartfelt. No pun intended. Please, I would not be doing a service to my audience if we didn't start out by the story. So please launch us into the story.
Okay, the story, I'll give you the shortened version because I know we want to get into like the nitty gritty, but the short version is I've been an athlete all of my life. I was into fitness and wellness. I ran a half marathon after my daughter was born. I was a cycle instructor and a yoga instructor. And that was kind of my fun job on the side. I worked as an advertising exec. And then, yeah, long story, really short is I found myself being wheeled into emergency heart surgery shortly after my 33rd birthday. And when I came out of surgery, the doctors told me that I was lucky to be alive. And I had a 98% blockage to my left main artery. It's called the widowmaker. And so I came out of surgery and I had a lot of time to think. And I realized that my life was short and I wanted to do what I loved. And I really took some time to think about what that was. And when I sat back, I thought, I wanted to help others get healthy and happy, because I realized health went beyond, I was eating healthy, I was exercising, but it was so much more than that. It really was the stress, I think, that my life was under at the time. And so, yeah, I started Goomi Group to bring health and wellness into the workplace.
I love
And
that you mentioned stress. I love that because
yeah,
I think that we're starting to, as human beings and spirits, recognize how damaging stress is to
yeah.
our lives. And I know for me personally, I had to come to that understanding as well. And when you go through a life-threatening situation like you had, it gives you great perspective. There's many I remember it was a Buddhist monk and he was talking, and I listened to him for some time talking about how to live your death through so you can understand the value of life and relive your life. And that's where you got that opportunity to do so. So I'm so glad that you mentioned distress, because also my guess is I'm talking to an audience where many of them can relate and say, yes, I'm pretty stressed right now. I'm feeling a lot of stress. So this is something that resonates with the audience. Now, as we get into your story, I first want to let the audience know now, how long have you been in business?
Yeah, so we were talking about this before the show. I launched the company in 2015, but really first financials were January 2016. So it's been almost 9 years. So
Wow.
this August will be 9 years that I've had the company. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the structure of the company so people understand who are your clients? How are you structuring the company? What is it you do? So they understand, is it, yoga, which I know it's not a yoga studio, and that's a brick and mortar is what's probably in their mind. So I want them to understand what exactly the company's doing and who the clients are and how much you've had to structure the company to succeed.
Yeah. Okay. So when Lori and I first started working together, when I started it, it was an on-site only fitness and wellness company. So if you think, we work with business to business, so we're a B2B company, and we work with those businesses to put together wellness programs. So that could be everything from a health fair to a cooking demonstration to on-site massages. And what we do is they tell us, we work with them to figure out what they want, and then we deliver it. So think about it as, like, I always joke these days, it's like DoorDash, but for workplace wellness. And so they call us, they ask us for what they want. And then with regards to restructuring, Lori, I think that's a really good point, is that we started on-site only. So we only went on-site. We didn't do any virtual. And then when COVID hit, we lost every single one of our clients within 2 weeks. And we really had to pivot and restructure the company to be able to offer virtual classes. So we went online within 48 hours. So now the first 48 hours, I did cry and like tuck myself in bed and think I was losing the company. But I put on my big girl pants and got out of bed and said, let's do this. And so we pivoted into the virtual space, started offering on-demand classes because the world was like in chaos. And now where we've pivoted into the digital space. So we're really, we've launched a platform, and so I've had to pivot a few times, and we've ebbed and we've flowed. And, to be honest, the company is not what I thought it was when I started 9 years ago.
I can
Or
imagine. Now, I know when you were pre-COVID, you were working with a lot of corporate type companies, company type situations. When
yeah.
you pivoted to be a digital platform, are you more selling directly to the consumers now, or are you still selling in the corporate? I don't know the answer to that, so I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, we're still business to business. That's really the
Okay.
core of who we are. That's what we stuck with. That's what we knew. And I think as you're going along with as a company and making big decisions, you have to realize that you have to stick with what you know, and you have to stick with the clients that you know. And for us, it's always made sense to stick with the B2B focus, and that's been our bread and butter. And I think that's where we excel. So we've stuck in that space.
Also, and I may be incorrect in this and just correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like, yes, there's competitors. I'm not saying there's not, but there is a lot of competitors in the direct to consumer teaching, through even YouTube and stuff, where the B2B seems like you have a better playing ground to have a higher prices charged because you are creating programs for their employees. So you have somebody responsible for buying from the best company to support the proper programs for their employees. So it seems like there's a level up in respect in the services and therefore a different price point as well. Am I somewhat correct? Not correct at all? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think that in the B2B space, you can charge a lot more because you're talking about the organization. And as you said in my bio, it was about making health and wellness affordable and accessible for everyone. So we make it as affordable as we can for the B2B space, but we can charge more than the individual. But what makes it accessible for everyone is the companies are paying for it. So they are paying the larger amounts. In terms of when you think about finances, I don't have to go out and sell to 1,000 employees. I can sell to one client. So yes, it's more expensive in that regards. But for us, it's accessible, and our values and our mission are aligned with that. And that employers have to pay for the employees. So every now and then, over the past 9 years, I have had clients come to me and say, we just want to offer it to our employees, but we want them to pay for it. And we've had to turn away those clients and say that's not our business model.
Well, there's some great information. See, what I was saying is not necessarily on the expense, but the positive side, because you're able to actually have some healthy margins because you're able to price into the corporate world. But at the same point, I want to come back to our audience and have them understand this, if you will. So I always tell people that, yes, it's great when you can get into corporations sometimes, because like you said, you can have repeat business. You may be able to have a higher selling price, all these wonderful things. But you know what? I would love for you to speak on. It also comes at a cost. And the two things, one, it's harder to sell those corporate accounts. It's not like you got to have credentials. There's a little bit more of a buying criteria. So you don't close them as easily. And then you have to be really sound and have it together operationally, because you got to be able to perform on a corporate level as well. So can you talk to the selling process and also the infrastructure needed to support that kind of clientele? I think that's a great discussion.
Yeah. So it is harder to sell to companies. You do need to check a lot of boxes. So we need insurance. That was a big thing. We need to be able to add clients onto the insurance. That's an even bigger thing. That's like a must have. We have to have a lot of the digital infrastructure in place so that if we're allowing employees to come on to even our Zoom, we have to have the necessary security measures in place. A lot of acronyms I still have a hard time remembering and understanding. But what's nice is the stickiness factor. So what you were talking about, Lori. So a lot of our clients have been with us for, we have some clients that have been with us for 8 years. And a lot of our clients keep coming back. So from a financial standpoint, it has been easier to sell B2B because I'm not having that churn. So our churn is really low. It's at 4%. So our historical, like how many customers we're losing year over year, is roughly about 4%, which is really great. But the financial weight of it, so like our expenses are a lot higher.
Right.
And then the infrastructure for the company, when you and I started working together, I think it was me and maybe like one or two other people. And now we've got like a full stack team. So we employ, there's 7 of us full-timers. There's probably another 10 part-timers and contractors that we work with on a daily. And then we have hundreds of contractors that go out. So hundreds. So the financial weight, and I'll use this as like a way to to dive into like the finances
Oh,
piece
please
of it.
do. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. Because I think that's really important when I talk about like the what we're getting paid and what we're paying out and how we've built this infrastructure. Working with you was so key for me in terms of when I first started the company, I thought it was just going to be me. And you and I had talked about these goals, and I was like, oh, I just want to make, $75,000 a year. And I just like, that's all I need to live. And I could live happily. And I was a single mom at the time. And I was like, that's enough for me to live in the comfortableness and like take care of the kids and everything else. And I thought I would just go it alone and just sell to these companies that I knew. And I would grow the company, and I was paying the instructors like 50%, and I was keeping 50%. And I was giving discounts, which you reminded me of, in order to sell. I felt like I had to give the discounts. And when I came into my second year, that's when I called you, because my first year was profitable. So you were showing that graph, right, of what my expenses were. And what I found was that my first year, I think it was profitable like 18%. So my net income was 18%. And the second year, I doubled revenues. Like I had done double what I did the prior year, but my profit went down to 5%. And that's where I panicked and I called you. And I really used the skills that you taught me, which was, and you jokingly said, like, I could be making $1 million, but I wouldn't have any money at the end because of the structure that I was doing. So I think it's really important for everybody listening to really get your finances in check. And I recommend Lori to everybody. I'm a huge fan. I'd like to say I'm your biggest fan. But the finances are really, really important to how you structure the business. And if I hadn't had the profit margins that I had from the get-go and have been able to maintain those profit margins, then we would have never been able to get to the point where we are now, being able to afford 7 full-time employees, plus all of the cogs that we have with the instructors and all the other little things that we buy. So knowing your numbers is probably the number one thing of running a business. And I think it's so, so important to be able to manage
And you
that.
bring up so many good points. And like we were talking before the show, most small companies don't understand what we're speaking about. And most small company advisors don't either. I had the advantage of what I always say, leaving my small tribe, going in and being a CFO for big companies, having grown up in small companies and being a small company, and then going, oh, this is what big companies are talking about. This is what small companies aren't talking about. Wait a minute, this is the problem. So that's why I'm an anomaly with what I talk about. And, thank you so much for everything you said, but I don't do anything but teach people. All I do is, that's what I love about it is I teach them. I have to wrangle with them a little bit to say, no, you need to look at it this way. And then the numbers tell them, and then they're like, okay, I got to make a new choice. But with your business model, as you were increasing your revenues and having more clients, you're paying the same thing out more for the instructors. And so the profit margins were really shrinking rather than growing. And so often I see that. Like I say, probably 98% of the people I see through the small business development center, when they come to me, I'm like, your cost structure is not going to work. You increase your sales, you're just going to be more tired and more broke. And that's how
Yeah.
it is. I want to go back. I love this conversation. I want to go back and I want to pick one thing up before I forget, though. And it's a little bit of a side note, and then I want to go back in the finance. And it has to do with when you transitioned into a digital platform, and you mentioned security and stuff. And a lot of people are trying to become more into the digital platform, but all of a sudden, and the only way I ask the question and to say it is kind of this way, as a consumer of the digital platform, no matter what goes wrong, even if it's on my end, it's your fault and you got to fix it, right? And so, what is it like when suddenly you're trying to make technology perfect in a delivery where when you went on site, the physical body could open the door, be on site, there's no big surprises. But in the technology space, you could wake up, an upgrade happen, and your whole world's different. How do you deal with that in any direction you want to go? Because we got a lot in our audience that are using digital platforms or trying to and struggling.
There's always going to be technological issues. We're going through them now. We actually have an emergency status call in an hour or so, 2 hours from now. We are constantly, there's always something that's broke. There's always something that needs fixing in the digital standpoint. And you need to be ready for that. And if you don't know the digital space, which I am not, it's not to say that I'm not tech savvy, but I know what I don't know. And I don't know like coding on the back end. And I need to Google a lot of terms and figure it out. And so what a couple things that I've done for the technology side is, one, I've hired people that are smarter than me, that know that space, and I make sure that they're in every meeting, and that I have those type of people either on my advisory board, in my network that I can call on the last minute, or that are on my team. But getting into the tech side of things is a challenge. One, it's a huge expense. So for those of you that are out there like building it, we built ours from scratch. So there's the patents that you need to get on it if you want to go that route, which is tens of thousands of dollars. If you want to go that route, which sometimes when you're building the technology, you do. Using other people's technology and then not having the control, there's those issues that you're dealing with. But at the same time, it has allowed us to grow and expand in ways that we never thought. And so a lot of what we do, and if I was to give advice from like the technology side, for those of you that are going into the technology, and trying to transition into a digital platform, is try it out small without spending thousands and thousands of dollars. So we launched a new product, a lifestyle spending account rewards kind of product for, again, it's sold to employers, but the employees are the ones who get to use it. And we built it as inexpensive as possible, and to try it out to see like, okay, how do we spend as little as possible to test it, to see if there's a need, and then to start building out the financials from there. Because I think that that's the most important part. And my hardest learning lesson was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, building something, and then not having the right price structure around it, going by word of mouth, what I thought was going to be it and what I thought people were going to want. And I wish that I would have created like more of an MVP and started smaller rather than like, a $500,000 build. So that would be my advice from like a financial standpoint. And then you can start building the financials. And that's something that I've worked on. And like right now we're talking about a few different ones, a few different technological pieces that we have. And we've started small. These last couple, we've started really small. And then we're like, okay, now it's selling. Now we know what we can sell it at, and we're making a profit. And now let's keep going instead of building something in the hopes that it'll do well.
I love what you're speaking about. I tell people often, growing up in a small little country town and always being around small businesses, I knew that what they did is they grew by selling to one customer, selling one product at a time. And it just kind of, expanded over the time period. And then maybe they got a second small store, and that's how they grew. Today's entrepreneurs got all this junk put in their head from society that you jump out and you are big and you're everywhere. And they got, and I'm like, at the end of the day, companies are still built one little tiny step at a time. And part of it is they don't have the vast resources to make mistakes that are big, like a big company that has investors, right? You can't, the mistakes cost you a lot. And I love what you just said, because you explain that in detail.
Yeah. And I think being scrappy is important. And for all the small businesses out there, when I think about trying to get like one customer at a time, I want to throw money at it, right? I want to be like, oh, if I buy this marketing tool, or if I buy this marketing list, or if I hire this SEO company to write my blogs. I think when I started, I was very, very scrappy. And somewhere in the growth stage, I started throwing money at it, or not throwing money, but spending money to try different things. And what I found in the last year is that I'm actually need to go back to being scrappy. Like I need to go back to like, what what is going to be the lowest out-of-pocket cost, and nothing, and let's see if it works. And am I willing to spend that money? And if it doesn't work, am I going to be sad about it? Or am I going to be really upset about it? Or happy about it? Like if I'm going to be like, okay, it failed, but it was worth it for $1,000. Like I'm trying something out right now. It's costing $1,000. Other quotes I've had for that are like 3,500. And I think what we need to realize as small businesses, because we're still a small business also, is that we have the networks. Like with the SBDC, the resources that are at your fingertips are free.
You're right.
And taking advantage of those. And the person's not going to be listening, and I'll cut this part out as I like probably repost this interview, like this podcast and an interview. But I had somebody come to me for financial advice and I was really needing it. And she's like, yeah, it's going to be 3,500 a month. And to me, I'm like, okay, you know, where we are, our profit margins, I could support something like that. And then I took a beat and I thought, you know what? I have these resources at my fingertips. And I have my advisory board and I have the SBDC and I have Lori. And that's really where we reconnected. Well, I was giving advice to somebody else and I was like, wait, why aren't I using Lori for my stuff too? But it applies to marketing specifically because there's so much marketing out there for small businesses. Like, I'm going to get you these lists and I'm going to do this for you. And it's only going to cost you $1,000 a month, or it's only going to cost you $3,000 a month, but I'm going to make you 3 million. None of those work.
Yeah.
And I just recently watched a Mark Cuban masterclass, and he was talking about how he launched this pharmacy delivery pharmacy company. I wish I could remember the name, but he said he spent $0 on marketing. And I'm like, that's Mark Cuban. He could spend his millions of dollars on marketing and it would be like, whatever. And I thought, if he's not spending any money on marketing, then we shouldn't be either. And you can get those one customer at a time from word of mouth. And I think that is how we've scaled our company, is good service to good people. And that is true for any business out there. Like good service to good, consistent service to good people. And I think
love that. I love that, good service to good people. And, you know, I have to say on what you're speaking about after the pandemic, and, you know, because I'm always seeing people's financials, I seen so many companies, countless number of companies that spent a fortune on AdWords or some kind of SEO during the pandemic, and they increased sales, but their profit margins were not there. And now they're in more of a dire financial situation than they were before because they thought they were doing so good and they weren't. So, you know, as humans, we want to throw money at the problem. I know I can do that myself. And I think staying scrappy, as you explain it, is such a wonderful and it's great to have the audience hear that. You know, on the same vein of thought as I did technology, I want to come back into something else that I see people not realizing how important it is. And I'm going to say that's processes. So when you started out with just you and you had a couple people, you could say, hey, go over to building A and teach a class. But now, like you said, you've got hundreds and hundreds of people. And even when we spoke about the need to manage the processes effectively because you've got the internal processes. Just like Amazon's not a company that makes anything, they're successful because they're a process company. So I started saying a good decade, maybe even longer ago, the key competitor advantage that companies will have in the new world, as we called it back then, is processes. Internal processes are selling advantages. And I gotta believe that. I can tell it resonates with you. I'm stopping. You get what I'm saying. Take it from there. Give us some advice on processes.
Set up your processes early. There's some really great books out there. I think the EMIS solution was a really great one on process. And that one was key. And I feel like there's another one, I can't think of it, but go out there and look for books on processes. And we started processes very small. And I think that was really important for us. Like A happens, then B happens, then C happens. And as we've gotten bigger, we are having constant conversations on processes. Funny enough, we just had an all hands staff meeting last week, and it was like our first big one. It was our like rah rah. And the second biggest thing that I was like, we have to talk about today. The first was company values and like reevaluating company values, which is so important when you're hiring. And the second piece of it was our processes. So our pre-invoice standard operating procedure and our post-invoice standing operating procedure. And it's still a work in process. Like my team was like, yeah, we got it on paper and it looks like this, and it's super complicated with lots of, my COO did it with like lots of arrows and boxes and different shaped boxes and all that stuff. And it looks awesome. And it really, I was like, yeah, that covers it all. And then I talked to the team and they're like, it's still not covering everything. But to have something on paper that allows anybody else to come in, and I always say it's so important to have it written down. It doesn't even matter if it's just you. When it's just you, it's like, hey, I make phone call and then I send an email 1 week later. And then if I don't hear back, then I send second email 2 weeks later. And then if I don't hear back, I make phone call. Like it could be as simple as that. But having those processes in place allows somebody else to come in, Joe Schmo off the street, or Jen or Jane or Jane Doe, whatever, like whoever it is, can come off the street and be like, oh, cool, I can do Mika's job. And I make phone call and then I send email, and this is what the email looks like, or this is the gist of the email. We now have a hub of standardized like answers to questions, because we always get the same questions from clients, not always. And if it's an always thing, then that needs to go in a brochure somewhere or on a website somewhere. But you start seeing patterns. And the thing I'll stop with, because I do get overexcited about like processes, but what's great about having those processes is you can figure out where the leak is in the hose or the kink is in the hose. So like when the stuff starts not working, you're like, oh, that's our kink. And I'll give you a quick example, which is when we first started, we talk to companies, they tell us, yes, we want yoga class and meditation class. And then we hire, and then that instructor shows up. But even in that really brief process, we found kinks in our hose, like instructors weren't showing up or clients forgot about it. So we put a process in place now that we send a reminder to the client every Friday before the event happens. That's number one. And then we send an email or a text message to the instructor on the Friday before their event. So now we've fixed that kink. And since then, knock on wood, but like 99% of the time, our instructors and our clients don't forget, because we fixed that process. And that's why I'm so passionate about process. It's really important.
I am
Yeah.
too. And I'm so glad what you said, because it hits the nail on the head. When I would go in and do turnarounds in companies, which I did for decades, one of the things I looked at is the processes, and the processes or lack of processes feed into the finance, because you got more people hired to do things and they're all running around. And one of the things I do in each company is fix processes, even communication, and who can send an email out to who. And suddenly overnight, they're starting to be more effective. The clients are happy and it saves money. It does save money. And I love what you say about just a process, two things that were great. And that is, when you are looking at your internal processes, going to books, getting information is great, but it comes down to looking at and go, I do have A, then I do B, then I do C. If you just sit down and map it out, it is so important. And for, even if you're just yourself, have it in writing. I have writings about all my processes. I should do this, then I turn around, do this. I even have processes on my show, and then I do this. Processes will save everything. So now what I'd like to do is go into a little bit on the personal side, because I know that since you contacted me again, I was very surprised and excited to hear about how you are living your life. And what I love to communicate on the show, Mika, it's, to me, being an entrepreneur is about owning your power and bringing a full ability to make choices in your life professionally and personally. I think that we're finally getting to the world where it's catching up with my views, is the way I want to look at it. But I've always saw that we don't want to separate where we go to work, we maybe like it or we don't, and then we come home and then we do this, because that is such a part of our being, our existence on planet Earth. But at the same time, when you start a company, if suddenly it's you're you're just chained to it and you're stressed out and you have no personal options at all, that isn't any good either. You might as well go make the bigger money at the company, right? You may be stressed, but at least you can pay for a nice friggin' vacation and take time off, right? So I see people that become an entrepreneur to gain the power, but then they don't gain the power and they don't have the ability to really organize their life in a happy way, right? And so I really think, or I would love to believe, I'd love to believe that the generations coming behind me are not programmed like I had been and had to reprogram myself out of the corporate world, but they're starting to look at how do you make a balance and how do you choose a lifestyle that supports what you want to do? And is it even possible? You know, some of them are even saying that, is it even possible? So I am going to take this full circle by just leading you in any direction you want by saying you learned from your massive heart attack that stress was a key indicator to what caused you problems. This led you on this wonderful entrepreneurial journey. So how has it changed your life view about work? How is stress different to you? How do you manage stress differently? And where has it led you personally in where you have taken your entrepreneurial journey? Just take it from there wherever you want to go.
Okay, so I'll start from the beginning. So after my when I started my bonus life, so after my heart surgery, and I actually ended up not learning the lesson, and I ended up having multiple other procedures that kept putting me in the hospital. And that's when I really realized that the life is short. And you were talking about that monk, that you go through that process of your experiencing your funeral and thinking about that. And that's in a good book. I think it's Good to Great, or like the 7 Healthy Habits, like one of those. And I think it's 7 Healthy Habits. I think it's 7 Healthy Habits, where he talks about like imagining your funeral. And so when I really thought what my life would look like, if my life ended tomorrow, what am I going to be sad about? And I think, to me at the time, years ago when I started Goomi Group, it was just more time with my kids. And so I was I worked really hard with Goomi Group because I was trying to make it so it could afford the life that I wanted, which was more time with my kids. But what was important to me, and everybody's different, but find what's important for you and then build the company around that, or make sure that the company supports that. So for me, it was being able to like take time off to go see my kids play sports or dance recitals and all the stuff like that, and be there for them, and be there for them after school, which wasn't a priority for me. My mom was a working mom, so like I never had a stay-at-home parent, so I didn't know what that was like. But I loved when I started experiencing that when the kids got home. That was so important to me. So I built the company around that. And then as my life in the last 10, decade has changed and kind of ebbed and flowed, that has changed a little bit more too. So that now my new goal, where I want the company to go, is really based around, I want to retire when I'm 50, 51, it's looking like, but 51. And I want to live on an island somewhere with a beach house. And I've made these missions, and I encourage everybody who's listening to actually take like a little postcard and write it down. Like, just think about like what your perfect life would be. And you can either put it on a wall somewhere or even tuck it in a drawer. And I did that exercise years and years ago. And I said, I want to live on an island. I want to live on the beach. I want to be the CEO of my company. At the time, I was not the CEO. I was just the founder. I didn't have enough people to call myself a CEO. And I wrote down on this card, and it took 5 years later, I was living on a beach on an island, and I was walking, and I realized I had this epiphany that I made that happen. And I think that that's kind of like the full circle of making it work for your personal, like, what is it for you that would make you, what would be like your ideal? And then start working towards that, like whatever that personal is. Some people just want to live life in a van. Some people, myself, I wanted to live on an island near water with a beach house. And some people, it's just more time with their kids. Some people, it's, I want to make millions of dollars and own a yacht. Like, I don't know what your personal thing is, but I encourage you all to grab a little note card, write it down, like as detailed as possible, and remember that. And that's where you should let the company guide you from a stress standpoint. Taking the time, and it's so hard. I do not practice what I preach. Like, I wish, I'm an honest person, so I'm not going to pretend that I do it, but I do meditate on a regular basis, and I do try to carve out time for me to take care of me. And that's, I think, the hardest part, because I'm so taking care about the family that I put me last. So I think that that's also important, to take time for you, because burnout is real. It is across the world right now. We are all experiencing it. So just meditation, exercise, a fresh walk. I now take walking meetings. Simple as that. Put on your headphones, go for a walk, take the meeting on a walk with you. But
That is wonderful, and so many things that I resonated with. First of all, I think that the ability, well, let me say this. Many years ago, in my 20s, I came up with this saying that I wrote down, and it was success equals intelligence times action, right? So I realized that in order to experience something, yes, we have to have a vision of where we want to go. But if, like, going back, if your profit margins don't match up, I don't care how much you put out there in the universe, it's not going to, we still play a monopoly game, right? So this combination of having a dream and having a goal and being very clear about where you want to go, and then taking the appropriate action, getting the information, following the information, I think that's
yeah.
where it comes together. I have to tell a funny thing, talking about putting stuff on a postcard. So this is a statement on how well this works. So I started doing vision boards decades ago. I thought they were really cool. Every New Year's Eve, I did a vision board, right? So back at the time, this was back in, oh my God, I must have been like 30, right? I was into backpacking. So I did this vision board, and one of it was more mountains and backpacking. So I was in this like mountaineering type book, and I was cutting pictures out of mountains to put on my vision board that I wanted to go. So I come upon this picture of this cool person with an ice pick ice climbing. And I laughed at myself and said, there's no way I would ever do that. But the picture was so friggin' cool, I put it on my vision board. Yes, 5 years later, I was ice climbing. And I didn't even think about it until I pulled out the vision board. And it was like packed up in something. And I went, oh my friggin' God, I now know why I got into ice climbing. And so I thought to myself, oh yeah, this stuff is real, because I had no plans on being an ice climber. So I had to share with you. So I think where we're starting to understand is there is still the monopoly game that has to be played a certain way, because it's planet Earth. I always say it's 3D monopoly game. You got to play it a certain way. You got to know your profit margins, know your cost circle.
Yeah.
But are understanding the power of that other part of us, that whatever you want to call it, in manifesting the world. And if there's one thing I want to shout from everywhere, is you can create the ideal dream, but it has to be understood mechanically how well it works. And a lot of times the ideal dream is really more simple than you think, because you're falling into what society believes.
Yeah, and I was just going to type it in the chat. I'd love for everybody to remember that success doesn't equal more money.
No.
Like, and I think that you have to have the money to be able to afford what you want. And that's where the profit margins come in. But if I didn't need to make a lot of money, I could donate all that to charity if that was my choice. But success doesn't equal money, and success equals whatever you determine success is. So for some people, it's living life in a van. For some people, it's living life on an island with a view of the ocean. For some people, it's just more time. I think somebody wrote it in the chat, like more time with family. Yeah. That to me is success 100%. Being able to have, one of the things that determine my success, and I'll share it because it's so simple, but it's having weekly dinners with my family, like weekly dinners. And that to me is success. And, sitting down at the table, which we did last night, and like actually sitting around a table with my family and being able to have dinner together. that to me is success. And I also want to encourage all of you, because this was something I forgot. And I try to take the moment, but remember when you get to those success points, like remember when you hit it and take the time to celebrate it. Because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're always thinking our success is going to change, right? Like it's going to, when you get to the, I don't know, the beach house on the island, then all of a sudden you're like, well, what am I working for next? And listen, we're entrepreneurs. We're already on to the next thing. But to remember that you've accomplished whatever it is you came to accomplish, and to revel in that for a moment. And I just had one of those where I wanted to hit $1 million, and I've been working so hard and hitting $1 million in a year. Like I just said, I want to do $1 million in a year. And we've gotten so close for years. And for me, I'm trying to revel in that this week, and realizing that we did it, and to be proud of myself for a moment.
Absolutely. I mean, I am proud for you, because that is huge compared to when I talked with you how many years ago, which I don't even know how many it is. And you're so correct about success. I always say money doesn't buy happiness, it buys comfort. That's what it
Yeah,
buys. It buys
exactly.
heating, it buys air conditioning, it buys comfort. And success is about what you deem it to be so. And I think that is such an important lesson, especially for us that are entrepreneurs, very much
Yeah.
a good lesson. So thank you so much for saying that. And one of the questions that Valerie has is, how much on-site wellness do you still do? Did you continue to do the on-site as well?
Yeah, actually, we're the only company in the US that I know of that can actually go on site in any city in the US. And that was part of that standard operating procedures.
Okay.
So we knew that we would go back to it because that was our bread and butter. And it was also our unique selling proposition, knowing we were the only one. So we do. And we're seeing a shift back, especially this year. We've seen
Okay.
a huge shift back to on-site, but we do hybrid, and that's really our focus, is being able to do some combination of on-site and remote, like virtual, and then on demand. And that's really where the success
Wonderful.
is.
You know, I had one more thought on what we were talking about a minute ago. I had somebody that from my old existence I was on, ran into, and they said to me, "Wow, you have really succeeded." And I sat there for a minute and I thought about it, and I said to them, I go, "No, actually, I gave up." Because I realized when they were saying you succeeded, in my head, I was going to own the big house in Hollywood. I was going to do all this. I wanted to do, my company was going to be, I was going to be famous. I finally got where I wore myself out and said, I don't even want that. I want this. And so, really, my success started when I gave up what I believed I needed to be and chose what I really wanted to be. And yes, I am happy and successful, but not with what I had in my head. So, similar to how I didn't expect to be where I am today, you didn't expect to be where, but thank God I'm where I am. Thank God all those obstacles came up in my pathway to divert me to the life I'm living today that I would have never planned on. What a joy having you on. And, it's been, I don't even know, do you know how many years it's been since we met and talked? Many.
Seven,
Yes,
7 or 8.
it's been many. And when, you like Mika said, she contacted me because a friend she thought could use some advice from me. And it was like, wow, I haven't talked to you in so long. Please come on the show. And then, kudos to her being a trooper. She's in New Zealand right now, guys. What time is it right now, Mika? It's what?
6 a.m.
6 a.m. So she had to get up very early. And I said, well, I can't change the time, but the audience would love you. And she said, okay, I'm in, I'm doing it. I'm getting up early and I'm here. So as we end, any last words you'd like to leave with the audience?
No, I loved everything you had to say. I think people should end on what you said, which was so important. Change, I think, the direction of our lives, and the obstacles come in our way for a reason, to give us what we actually really want. And if people can realize that sooner, I think happier and healthier all the way.
Absolutely. Well, Lauren, I'm going to get you back into the mix of this conversation. Was this not just another wonderful one?
It was so good. And you know what? I didn't know the background. So my jaw has been on the ground the entire time. Mika, First, finding out where you are today and how early it is for you, and then just hearing your story. I mean, take that walk on that island, girl. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Of
Thank
So,
you.
course.
so with this, everybody in the audience, I've got a huge, exciting announcement to make. We're talking about following dreams and goals and heading in new directions. So I'm going to say it this way. With much love and excitement, I'm announcing that this is the last time that Lauren will be with us today. Lauren has accepted a new position. She's going in a new direction. And as much as I know you are going to miss her as well as I do, I told her I am just happy because that means she is getting new experiences in life. So a great shout out to Lauren, my partner in crime that has been with me. Guys, the show's staying. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm part of the structure, man. Sadie's going to come with me next week. You've seen Sadie fill in for Lauren. She may be here. I'm going to be here, but we're still here. But our lovely Lauren that's been with us so long is going to fly out of the nest and go on to new exciting adventures. So a shout out to a big thanks and much love and good fortune and happiness in the new direction you go, Lauren.
Thank you so much, Lori. To my family, thank you. I see you guys in the chat. You guys are, I'm not typically emotional, but I feel all the love. Thank you so much. Lori, oh my goodness. First off, you're not going to get rid of me. This show isn't going to get rid of me. You might see my name in the attendees. But just thank you, truly. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your dream. To see what we've been able to build is just, I mean, one of those highlights, right? And in
Yeah.
life, aside from career, just in life, period. I know that it resonates with a ton of people, and I am forever grateful, Lori. Thank you.
Well, I'm just happy to our audience. The show as my little idea to do it for a couple months, and like I tell people, it was my payback to the SBDC for being their expert on the PPP and IDLE and having to do all those webinars. Like, you owe me some fun and I want to be a talk show host because Oprah has called me. And so that was my thing. So they were like, okay, Lori, we'll give you a little talk show for a couple months to make you happy. And now we're 2 years into it. And now there's no way they're stopping it. Believe me, guys, even if I said I was out of there, I'd get a call from the SBDC going, no, you're not. Your shows are part of our foundation. You're in. So I'm not
100%.
going anywhere. So once again, Mika, congratulations. I mean,
Yeah.
oh my God, you have just done so much since I've talked with you in 7 years. So thank you for listening to my advice because I knew it was going to get you where you needed to go. And I was very concerned in the direction you were heading. So thank you for coming on the show and sharing the story.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Lauren, congrats. And I wish you all the success in the world. You're going to be awesome.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, just wishing you lots of success. And Lori, thank you for everything. And I know we'll be chatting next week.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. So, Lauren, a big love to you and to everybody that is tuned in, all my frequent flyers, the people who this is your first episode. Thank you for tuning in to Small Biz Talk with your host, Lori Williams, and I will see you next week. Lauren will be staying behind to make sure everybody's got Mika's information and answer any questions. Plus, you need to get in touch with me. Lauren will give you an email to do so. Bye, everybody.
Bye, ladies. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. To my Small Biz Talk family, thank you so much for just everything. Continue to support the show. I, of course, will be saying hello here and there. Just going somewhere else, but not going away completely. So by all means, continue to be connected here. With that, let's go ahead and be sure to take a look in the chat. I'm going to relist Mika's contact information so that that's at the very top. And then I am also going to reshare our YouTube playlist link. So to see past shows, go ahead and click here. Mika's episode will be up this week. I'll probably get it up later on today, if not in the morning, tomorrow, excuse me. And then finally, if you would like to get in contact with Lori, so to meet with Lori, go ahead and you can still shoot me an email. My emails will be forwarded. Super sad. But go ahead and shoot an email here and she'll get in contact with you. So should you guys need anything at all, please be sure to get in contact. I just listed my email address in the chat so you can grab it there. And thank you. Thank you so much for being along for the ride with us and continue to come. Tell all your friends. All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.